Now we're going to flick into Overdrive. What have we got in this edition, James?
Well, Jeremy, on this edition of Overdrive, we're going to be looking at some really exciting cars. And the first one that we're going to look at is a fabulous Mercedes-Benz 300 SL Roadster, which of course is the road-going descendant of the 300 SLR race car, which 60 years ago, Jenks and Moss won the Mille. We're also going to be looking at some other really interesting cars. We've got a fabulous Maserati Sebring, haven't we, which is a very interesting motor car to talk about and look at. Well, tell us more about that.
Well, the Maserati Sebring has the direct descendant engine in it of the 250F Grand Prix car. Of course, 250F was 2.5 litres, and this car's 3.7 litres. But a very, very interesting car indeed.
Oh, well, that sort of brings us back to the 300 SL Roadster, because of course in the 300 SLR that Moss drove, Fangio drove one of those, and Fangio also drove the 250S, didn't he?
He did.
There's a bit of a link there as well. And Lucas fuel injection, wasn't the 300 SL the first road-going car to have fuel injection?
That's right, with Bosch fuel injection.
All right, so there's quite an interesting couple of links there between those two very different cars. We're going to also be looking at another great Maserati Ghibli. The original Ghibli was a great car, but the one we're looking at is a really special one in that it's not only Maserati Ghibli, but it's a SS, which means it's got a 4.9 rather than 4.7 litre, so that's very rare. Not only is it a Ghibli SS, it's a Ghibli SS Spider, so that makes it more rare still. And not only that, but it's a factory right-hand drive car, one of only 4 made in that configuration, so an incredibly rare motor car. It also what makes it even more rare, it's got a factory hardtop as an option. We've seen that on the delivery papers. I think this is probably a unique car in that it is probably the only Maserati Ghibli SS Spider right-hand drive with factory hardtop in the world. And if that wasn't enough, the next car we're going to look at is perhaps the greatest of all supercars at all, the progenitor, the greatest supercar ever.
The Lamborghini Miura SV.
Well, one of those just sold recently for 1.5 million sterling, so we're very lucky to have one on the show. And
we think it's only one of 7 factory-built right-hand drive cars. Again, terribly rare.
Incredible. So let's stop talking about it. Let's go and have a look at some of these cars.
Let's flick into Overdrive. Well, James, I think it's now that we flick into Overdrive.
Yeah, we should take a closer look at some of these cars that we've been talking about. And the one we're going to start off with is the oldest of our quartet, the Mercedes-Benz 300 SL Roadster. Of course, we're talking about celebrating the 60th anniversary of Moss and Jenkinson's win. And we brought along this poster of the Mille from 1952. Of course, we've been talking about 1955. We haven't got a poster for that, but it would have been something very similar that Jenks and Moss would have followed. Yeah, and so this is a repro, obviously scaled down. The wonderful Italian Signorina, beautiful. They start here in Brescia, run along down here towards the Adriatic coast, Ancona, past Porto Recanati, where my mother came from, on down to Pescara, of course, where there was one of the great road races that took place, back across the Abruzzi hills, and if you've ever driven this, steep mountain roads, I mean, very, very dramatic scenery, into Rome, and then back up, all the way up to Brescia. And it would have been a very similar route that Moss and Jenkinson would have negotiated. So this is the Mercedes-Benz 300 SL Roadster. Beautiful car, incredibly desirable. Not that rare, Jeremy. I mean, they made, how much, because this comes from the Gullwing, doesn't it?
That's right.
Gullwing first, and then they stopped production of the Gullwing after what, 1,100, 1,500?
Something like 1,300 Gullwings and approximately 1,500 Roadsters were made.
It's a really pretty car, very, very desirable. Quite a lot of them though. And these days they're worth about $1 million US dollars, aren't they? So although there's quite a few, very, very desirable, much sought after by collectors, highly collectible.
It's one of the rare instances where the hardtop car is worth more than the convertible car, which is normally the other way around.
It's quite interesting. We've got this such a wide doorway and very thick sills. Why is that, Jeremy?
Well, that's because the chassis of the car is made out of lots of thin tubes, and they have to box them out like that to get the strength back, because they don't have the roof anymore. They don't have the gull wing roof.
And this is the sort of car that today one could go into the Mille Miglia reenactment in.
Yes, and a good car to drive. Whilst the Gullwing car, of course, is terribly iconic, and that whenever we think of 300 SLs, we think of the Gullwing first. In practicality, it's very claustrophobic and hot inside, whereas this is a much nicer car to drive. They also redesigned the rear suspension on the Roadster model to make it more sure-footed and less tail happy.
Okay, now talking of tubular construction of chassis, of course Maserati are one of the manufacturers renowned for this with their famous birdcage racing car. Does that carry over into the Sebring at all?
Well, the Maserati birdcage is a nickname that it got because the chassis of the car was made out of so many thin tubes that were quite visible when you looked inside the car that it got this nickname, the birdcage.
And is this tubular chassis?
It does have some square tubular framework in the chassis, but it doesn't, you wouldn't call it a space frame chassis.
No, okay. Wonderful, wonderful motor car in that highly desirable Maserati blue. I love this car, we've been talking about it quite a bit. I think the Sebring it's just growing on me. I've always liked Maseratis.
I agree.
And this colour, of course, is a really strong Maserati colour, renowned for navy blue, and it really does suit Maseratis. I really like, and the more I look at Vignale style cars such as this Maserati, the more I'm going to go home, I'm going to get all the books out and I'm going to start reading about Vignale. Really, really lovely car.
Let me just say a couple of words while we're looking at this Maserati. And I think people forget about we're familiar with Maserati today as a revitalised brand and the new Ghibli that you spoke about earlier. But you must remember that Maserati is really Italian car royalty. They have a history stretching back 100 years. It was the centenary of Maserati last year.
Maseratis now can be multi-million-dollar cars costing a lot of money, but they still don't fetch the same prices as the equivalent Ferraris, do they? Which is surprising because they've got the same, or as good as race pedigree and heritage.
Maybe more so.
You know, Maserati, one of my favourites. They even made their own spark plugs. Wonderful. As is this incredible Maserati Ghibli SS Spider. Very, very rare motor car. One of only 4 factory right-hand drive cars. And also with the factory hardtop. Stunning combination, Maserati blue with the bone interior. You know, that is the sort of, every time you see a Maserati brochure, that's how they show their cars, isn't it? So it's really, really nice. I think it's a great colour combination, but I'd love to see this particular model back in its original colour as well, just to see what it looks like. Really, really nice. It's got pop-up headlights, smooth 70s shape. And it comes with these great Chromadora wheels, unlike the Sebring, which has Baranis. Which do you like best, the Baranis or the Chromadoras?
Well, I don't have a preference. I think that they have to be fit the period of the car, and I think the 50s and the 60s cars, early 60s cars, look great with the Barani wire wheels. But when the cars move on to the later 60s and early 70s with this much more aerodynamic styling and the V8 engine, I think they should be on what was then new magnesium knock-on wheel.
We started off with a 6-cylinder car, we went to the 6-cylinder Sebring, we've gone to the 8-cylinder Ghibli, and here we are at the monstrous 12-cylinder Lamborghini Miura SV. This is the ultimate, Jeremy, isn't it?
It is. This was the most powerful model that they made and the last of the series. I think the cars were introduced in about 1966 and a very, very advanced mechanical setup. It was the first car to have a transverse V12 engine behind the driver, which today you don't see cars built like that at all. And of course, Ferrari, who were leading the pack in the day, they were stuck with their front engine V12, rear wheel drive, and they just looked like dinosaurs compared to a car like this.
Lamborghini Miura SV, the ultimate. There's only one thing wrong with this car. In my opinion, they've lost the eyelashes. You've got to have an eyelash on a pop-up headlight Miura.
What a fabulous group of cars we've just had. But on the next edition of Overdrive, what have we got, James?
Well, we're going to be looking at another 60th anniversary. Something, well, I suppose a little bit more prosaic than a 300 SL Roadster. But at the time, 1955, a car that blew everybody's minds and still blows my mind. So it's happy birthday to the Citroën DS. And I'm going to bring my Citroën DS in for you to have a quick look over it.
That'll be a lot of fun. I've seen that car.
Yes, well, I've owned it for quite a long time, and I don't look after it very well, do I? But, you know, it helped if I had more garage space, so it was very good when I first bought it. But anyway, it'll be fun to talk about the Citroën DS, so I think, and just one of my favourite all-time cars, and I've had a Citroën DS for probably the last 30 years now. So I do like those. We're also going to have a look at you riding your Triumph Bonneville motorbike. Now, not only is it a Triumph Bonnie, but it's something special.
Absolutely a special one, a Bonneville T120 TT Bonneville Special.
And what sort of people rode those apart from you?
Well, Steve McQueen raced one. They were very popular in America for that type of desert racing. And Evel Knievel jumped the fountains at Caesar's Palace on one.
Anne Margaret also rode one, and if I, don't want to be sexist, but she looked a lot better on hers than you do on yours.
I would agree with you.
And apart from that, we're also going to be talking about a very special Jaguar, because you are a bit of a, shall I do the Jaguar? How did they used to do it on that old program? What was it called? Jag. That, how they, I can't remember what that program was called. It's such a long time ago now, isn't it? And you're a Jag man, aren't you? Anyway, you do like a Jaguar. I must stop taking the mickey out of that program that fell over. Anyway, you like Jaguars. Tell me more about.
Oh, very much. I think I've got a bit of Jaguar DNA in me, really, and if I'm without one I get withdrawal symptoms. So I've always wanted to get a very special Mark II Jaguar, the ones that John Coombs of Guildford raced in the 1960s, but they're terribly rare and really unattainable. But the good news is I can build a replica, so that's what I'm doing.
So it's going to have all the racing bits on, louvers in the bonnet.
That's right.
You're going to have a roundel on it? What's your number?
I'm not, no.
You're not?
No.
Oh, right, okay. But it's going to have a special number, isn't it, I think?
The
registration.
That's right. John Coombs' registration plate for his race car was by 12, and I've managed to secure 12 by.
Well done.
Yeah.
Well, we'll look forward to that. See you guys next time on Overdrive, and don't forget to click the switch.